So today we're out in the apiary and we're looking at the different landing boards, and the activity is normal on most of them. But what I want you to see in this video is one is distinctively different. I'm going to show you what that difference is, and we're going to talk about the remedy for the problem. Now this is the month of June. Today is June 26th, although the sequence you're watching right now was about 5 days prior. So these bees on the landing board are doing their normal foraging. There are guards at the entrance. There's pollen coming in. They have rolled screens in that entrance of a flow hive tube, and that allows air to pass through while the bees can guard a small entrance. But listen to the sound of this landing board. Much higher pitch, higher frequency. The activity is different. These bees are not laid back at all, and what you really want to pay attention to are the bits and pieces of comb and wax that's strewn across the landing board here. And this is about a 5-inch wide opening, and these bees are being robbed. There are no guard bees fighting off these invaders. Those that are coming and going are flying directly in. They're not spending time loitering around on the landing board as they do in other hives. They're investigating every little bit and piece that's laying there to see if it might be some kind of food resource. And aside from showing you this robbing behavior, we're going to talk about how to stop it. And then we're going to talk about how to evaluate the colony and determine why they might have been robbed in the first place. In general, when you have plenty of colony strength, when they're queen right, you'll see plenty of guards, you'll see normal activity, and you'll see a colony of bees that can defend themselves, particularly this time of year. I'm going to slow things down a little bit here so you can really see what's going on. Robbers fly straight in, and when they come out, they exit right away. Again, there's no hanging out and inspecting each other on the landing board. And these could be coming from more than one robbing colony. It doesn't necessarily come from just one. And why do they rob in the first place? Well, they're inspecting hive landing boards all the time. The foragers, the scouts, are looking at spaces for a number of different reasons. One, possibly to move in if they're getting ready to swarm. The other is to see if there are resources that they can get without having to deal with a defensive colony of bees. So I stuck another piece of copper mesh in here to reduce that entrance and then give us a better look at these bees that are coming and going. They didn't react at all to my presence here, and that's because these are non-resident bees. So I can get very close right in front of it, make my observations, and all they want to do is get in and get out. They're not the least bit interested in defending this. And you see this bee in the center there, working over that white piece of comb and trying to lick up every little bit and piece of nectar or honey that might be on it from inside the hive. You also notice these little spattering spots on that vertical surface there. Sometimes the robbing bees that are coming out have sticky little feet, and they leave little dots on everything. So aside from the unkempt appearance of this landing board, those little dots are a secondary telltale sign as well. So what I'm trying to do is interrupt their entrance. And I thought it would be a great time to sit down and just look at them and see how they're doing what they're doing. Now, if I had not been out, this is early in the morning, if I had not been out in the bee yard, I would not have noticed what's going on here, and this entire colony would have been robbed out sometimes in just a matter of minutes. This is a single 10-frame deep box that has a feeder on top. Now what I've done is I've just dropped in another piece of copper mesh, and I wanted to see what the robbing bees would do when they encountered that barrier, and I want to see if any of the resident bees then might be able to set up some kind of defense, but it doesn't appear that they can. Their numbers may already be so low that they just can't defend the resources that they have in the face of the number of bees that are coming in. So when foragers come in the first place and they're searching for resources and they find a landing board that they can actually get past the guards on, once they find the nectar inside or the honey or whatever the resource is that they want, they fly back to their parent colony. They do a taste test with other bees there, and they return with 10, 20, 100, or even 1,000 colony mates that can also participate in the robbing that's going on here. So if you notice, the bees that are coming out of this hive are trying to exit directly, but they can't because the mesh is there. So you see them exiting to the right and to the left. So they just follow that mesh out and then they fly away. And the bees that are coming in try to fly directly in, and they encounter the mesh and they become very stressed. So you can see in real time here how frenzied they are, how fast they want to get in there. They really don't care about anything except getting in, getting what they want, and getting out. So the mesh frustrates them. And I want you to see it at length because I want you to listen and see the behavior and be aware of it when you're looking at your own colonies. So here that barrier is there so they can't fly straight in or out. So we're looking behind it there, and you can see the exiting bees following the mesh on out to the left and the right, and eventually others will find their way into the hive through the sides as well. So this is going to prove inadequate. And again, this is June, so the numbers are up in the colonies that are healthy. Their foraging force is large, and the nectar flow hasn't come on fully yet. So we have unemployed foragers more than happy to move in on smaller, weaker colonies and rob them out. We can see here that they're even finding their way in on the end of that copper mesh. I use this because air passes through it fairly freely, and the bees can dehydrate their nectar. That way they can vent the hive, but at the same time it provides a physical barrier normally that they would be able to defend, so we'd have a smaller opening. But that didn't work. So here's a close look again behind the barrier, seeing them exiting, and some of them have actually pushed up the copper mesh and are getting under it. Others are so intent on getting through that they actually push through the mesh and squeeze through. That's how much of a fever pitch there is to get in there and steal the resources from this colony, unable to defend itself. Now what I did is used tacks to pin down the mesh because the invaders were actually lifting it up and pushing through. And look how desperately they push into the mesh. Look at the one that appears caught slightly high and to the right there. It's just forcing its body in there. Looks like it's trapped and not going to be able to gain entry, but it actually weasels through and gets in. It's amazing how desperately they want to get at those resources. Look at the one lower right, right next to the pin. She's also worming her way through. And she's in. So this is classic robbing behavior. Here it is at full speed. And this is why it's a desperate situation, and you really have to do something about it when you find a colony that is being robbed. And we're going to talk about another solution here. Now, just for comparison, one hive over, this is normal landing board activity, and this is what you should hear early in the morning from a healthy colony that is not being invaded. So these comparisons are very important. Here's another colony, also with copper mesh, and they're perfectly calm. They have guards at the gate here, always on the lookout. And they're just fine. What a comparison. Another colony venting, normal traffic departing, heading out early in the morning to start their foraging day. Bees at the entrance venting, also guarding. And then back to our problemed hive. What a dramatic difference. So this is obviously inadequate. Putting copper mesh doesn't do it, so we put in a robbing screen. These are made by Be Smart Designs. I just happen to have a few in the garage, so I pinned them up here. Now I open that top escape hatch there, and we'll see that some of the robbers that have been waiting to get out finally fly out, and I cycle that open and close because I don't want to trap a bunch of them inside. The suspected low numbers of bees that are in this colony should not have to fight on their own landing board. So we've blocked the invaders, and then we just periodically open and close these upper entrances. Because again, remember that robbers want to fly directly in and directly out, and they have successfully overwhelmed this resident colony. So I'm just cycling this on and off. But a robbing screen like this would have put an immediate stop to what they were doing, and I recommend having a couple of robbing screens no matter what design it is, something built specifically for that purpose. Have them handy, because though this doesn't happen often, when it does happen you want to be prepared to do something quick and simple. These have the little tacks that come with them, and you just put it right on the landing board and pin them up. Again, we're just releasing those rascals. And they're still taking bits and pieces out with them, because those little white bits and pieces have sweets on them. So these robbers are taking them with them. And that's why we saw that laying around on the landing board to begin with, which aside from the frenzied activity was a telltale sign that something bad is happening to a colony. So the next thing you may wonder is, what do we do about these bees? Now that they've been robbed, what's the reason? Well, as I said, often there's something wrong with the colony to begin with that weakened it. They might be queenless. They might have swarmed recently and not have a new queen yet. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to open the hive, we're going to look inside, and we're going to see what's going on. So you can see that the invaders here have slowed down quite a bit. The numbers are somewhat reduced. And they're still frenzied. Look at the behavior. They're checking every little nook and opening, trying desperately to get into this hive because they've been told by their own scouts that it's time to raid it and get in fast. So I would say this robbing screen is doing a much better job than my copper screen. Goes without saying. So here we are today. Look at the colony. Well, they're not being robbed anymore, but the activity on this landing board is nowhere near what it should be, and you'll notice that I've opened both entrances. But now we're going to inspect, and instead of smoke, we're going to use 1:1 sugar syrup and 2 teaspoons of honeybee healthy to 1 pint here in lieu of smoke, because sometimes if there's a problem, you can get a defensive response from your bees. And we want to hit them with a sweetness load instead of smoke today, just to see how that works. And I'm wearing a vented bee jacket just in case. And this is a feeder shim on top. They have comb going right up to that rapid round feeder there. And now we're going to see what the numbers are like inside and what the conditions are. And this is not good news. Not difficult to imagine why this colony cannot defend itself. Their numbers are extremely low. This is a 10-frame box, and it looks like we might have 3 frames of bees in here, and they're not loaded frames. And these are, you can see some little guards there, but any attempt they might have to defend this group would be very feeble at best. I'm going to pull the frames and see what's going on in here. These are plastic acorn frames, and they've been emptied out. There is no honey capped on these frames, so the robbers definitely did their work. And we're looking here, I see a bunch of worker bees, all female. Looking for some drones here, but we definitely are queenless. There's no evidence of any laying activity. Now I see some pollen stored. Robbers generally aren't interested in stealing pollen. What they go after, of course, is honey and nectar. They'll lick the cells clean, but they'll also tear the caps off of them. Now they've had several days since the robbing occurred, so they've been doing their own cleanup and repair work. That's why the edges are all smoothed out. And this is pollen. These are pollen stores. There are some cells here that have some nectar in them, but they're in profound decline. These bees, if they were left to themselves, would just simply continue to die out because they have no means of reproduction. So, what can we do about it? We could pull a frame of brood from another colony that's really strong and put a bunch of nurse bees in there and hope that they develop a queen. If you have eggs and very early larvae, they could produce their own queen, but the number of bees that are left in here, they just wouldn't make it. Too much time's involved. I don't see evidence that they have nurse bees here. Pull these things apart here. Again, they have no reproduction going on in here at all. The good news is I don't see evidence of a laying worker. We don't have a bunch of drone brood here. And we do have a bunch of pollen. So what I'm going to do is take this opportunity to teach you what to do with a weak colony like this. We're going to combine them. So I happen to have another colony in the same apiary that is also not doing very well based on its landing board activity. So I thought we'll take a look into that one as well, and I'll demonstrate how to combine 2 weak colonies into one. So there's nothing left to learn here on this one, pretty much as we suspected, although I am surprised how thoroughly they've been cleaned out. I'm going to put this all back together here, and then we'll go and take a look at the colony I'm thinking about to combine them with. Now, whichever of the 2 has the largest resident numbers will be the static hive, and then whichever colony has the lowest numbers will be moved and stacked onto the stronger colony. There's a polystyrene cover here. Now this is the candidate that I'm looking at. Look at the landing board. This is a 10-frame deep box as well, so they're going to match up. But they have foragers coming and going, but the numbers are low. The activity is low. I've already pulled the cover off, and now we're going to pull the inner cover and take a look at these guys. Same thing, just the sugar water. Good news here, we do see some bees right at this entrance where the rapid round feeder sits. I'll pry this up here. Propolis has glued it down pretty good. And the moisture you see on the top there is a little spillage from the rapid round feeder that had sugar syrup in it. Now again, we've got low numbers here. They've got better comb in this box. But I'm concerned that we probably also don't have a queen here. So we're going to put frame holders on both sides of this box so I can pull them out to the side and we can get a good look at what's going on in here. But these numbers are too small to manage a box this size. They are a little bit better off than the bees that were in the other colony that was being robbed out. Why this colony hasn't been robbed out is kind of a mystery. They've got the Bee Smart Designs landing board there. It has little guards on the front of it, so it has plastic entrance reducers. Now here we have drone comb. They also have a few more resources in these frames. This is better comb. It looks like it's sagged a little bit here down on the bottom, which can happen if you get really hot days and you don't have the numbers of bees to keep that colony cool. Nothing but drones. I do see some open larvae. So we might actually have a situation here where there could be a laying worker. Now that wouldn't happen until they've been queenless for about 3 weeks. So all female workers have the potential to become a laying worker. They have the same reproductive organs that a queen has. And in the absence of the queen pheromone, they can become active and start laying eggs, and they are infertile eggs, which means they produce drones, and that's what we're looking at. There are drones hatching out. Well, I actually see some bees hatching there. We might still have a couple of workers there. That would be good news, but the numbers still are down. And there are a bunch of drone cells there. But it did appear that there were a couple of workers hatching out, not drones. How would we know that? Well, when you look at them as they're coming out of their cell, look at the size of their eyes. If they come together with no space in between them, that's a worker. I mean, if they come together with no space in between them, it's a drone. But those look like a couple of workers there. We do have some larvae in here. Now, if we've got open larvae, that means that we've had somebody laying in here within the last 9 days, but whoever that is, she's faulty. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use this colony as the foundation colony. We're going to combine the other robbed out colony, and I'm going to bring in a fertile laying queen. Now these numbers are small, and they're in an oversized box, but they don't seem to be drawing the interest of any aggressive bees. They do have some honey stored in here. They've definitely got some open nectar as well, so it's capped and open. And we've got lots of pollen, as we do in the other colony. So this is going to be a very easy combining of two inferior colonies, and then of course we're going to, within 3 days here, we're going to put in a fertile laying queen and get them going right away. So remember, there's lots of pollen in there too, so that's key. We're going to put newsprint in here. Now the newsprint I use is what artists use. I have a whole box of it. There's no actual print on it, but it is the newsprint paper. So I lay it on there, try to get it to stick to some of that honey and wax a little bit, but of course, wouldn't you know it, it's windy. Now we're going to put our robbed out colony straight on top of that layer of paper. A single layer of paper is fine. Once we get that lined up, I'm going to get the knife out here. We're going to make some slits in it, and that's just so that the bees from each box can smell each other. And what they'll do is they'll start chewing apart this paper. They'll ultimately remove it all together. But that's just so that they can get a little venting through there too. So we have two 10-frame deeps, which is a lot more space than these bees need. So we're going to keep their entrance reducer on in the front. We're going to make sure that they can handle themselves. And so the 3 frames of worker bees that are in this box here can ultimately combine with the others, and they share the resources that are left. All the comb is drawn on all of the frames. So the good news is, when the new queen arrives, either Saturday or Monday, I'm thinking, we're going to probably direct release her after we evaluate how well they accept her, and I expect that they will. This is a very passive colony of bees. And she can go straight into laying, or if we put a brood frame in there with open brood and we let them develop their own queen, given the numbers of the bees that are in here, they would just decline too fast and they would have 0 chance really of making it. So as it is, even getting a laying queen in here within a day or two, they're still going to be challenged, but I will bet you they're going to make it. Why is that? Well, because robbing's going to subside for one. The nectar flow is starting up here, and so the bees won't be attacking them, and they can go straight into building their own resources again, and they will have new bees hatching out within the next 25 days. And then the numbers will begin to build again, and we'll track the progress of this colony. You know, if we were commercial beekeepers, we would not try to resuscitate this colony at all. But because this is backyard beekeeping and we enjoy maybe picking an underdog or two to see if we can nurse them along and see if they don't become actually a very good colony of bees in the future. It's the end of June. We can still play with small swarms, small colonies like this. They look healthy in every other way. They just lost their queens. So thank you for watching. I hope you benefited from these observations today and the lesson on how to combine an inferior colony with a somewhat stronger one.